I found a secret letter among my late mother's belongings and it revealed who my real father is. My mother died on a rainy Tuesday morning, the kind of gray-skied cliché that screenwriters salivate over. Lung cancer, stage 4. She shrank by the week, bones where cheeks used to be, her voice just rasp in regret. When it was over, they told me she was in a better place, as if heaven made up for morphine and vomit and the slow erosion of dignity. The funeral was small. A dozen wilted lilies, a slideshow set to music she hated, and me pretending I wasn't the only one keeping count of who bothered to show up. I delivered the eulogy with dry eyes and a hollow stomach. It wasn't grief. Not yet. That came later in pieces. It came when I walked into her house alone. When her slippers were still at the foot of the bed. When her hairbrush had strands of silver still woven through the bristles. Grief lives in the quiet, in the dust, in the absence of noise. I gave myself 3 weeks before I touched the attic. It was her domain. Boxes labeled in neat cursive, photo albums by year, everything stored like she expected to return for it someday. I wasn't looking for anything in particular. Closure, maybe. A soft goodbye. What I found was anything but. The jewelry box was an old thing, one I'd seen tucked under her bed when I was a kid. She used to say, "Don't touch that," in a tone that made it sound sacred. I used to think it held gold. Turns out it held a grenade. Inside was a letter. No envelope. Just a single folded sheet of paper, yellowed, the edges worn down like it had been opened and closed too many times. Her handwriting was unmistakable, elegant and slanted, like everything she did was meant to be permanent. My darling girl. If you're reading this, then I'm gone. And there's something I should have told you long ago. My breath caught before I even finished the first line. It felt wrong reading her words posthumously. Like I was trespassing on the last secret she had. The man you call Dad, he isn't your biological father. I loved him, and he raised you like his own. But in the summer of 1988, we were separated, and I was lost. I met someone. His name was Daniel Cross. Daniel Cross. I'd never heard that name in my life. Not at Christmas dinners, not in whispered phone calls, not even during her painkiller-fueled ramblings near the end. It was as if he'd been surgically removed from our family history. It was brief and it was complicated. When your father and I reconciled, we decided to leave that chapter behind. I never told Daniel. He doesn't know you exist. But you deserve the truth, even if it comes too late. She signed it simply, "Love always, Mom." I didn't cry. I just sat there, the letter trembling in my hand, the attic pressing in around me like it wanted to smother the truth before it escaped my lips. My entire body felt like it had been unplugged, numb, weightless, unreal. For the first time in my life, I realized I didn't know who I was. Back downstairs, I rifled through every album, every box, every envelope. I looked for anything that might mention him, some trace of Daniel Cross. Nothing. She'd erased him like a stain on white linen. And yet, I couldn't stop staring at myself in the mirror, suddenly trying to pinpoint which features didn't belong to the man I had called Dad. I should have let it go. Some secrets die with the dead for a reason. But I couldn't. The name kept echoing in my head like a curse. So I did the thing we all do when faced with an impossible question. I Googled him. There were dozens. A Daniel Cross who coached high school baseball in Utah. One who went to prison in 2007. One who made chainmail jewelry on Etsy. I almost gave up until I found a staff page for a music school 2 states away. Daniel Cross, 59, guitar instructor, former touring musician, lifelong lover of classic rock. He had my eyes. No, I had his eyes. Hazel, with a strange gold ring around the pupil that always made optometrists do a double take. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. It felt like looking at a stranger and seeing home. For a week, I obsessed. I printed his photo and pinned it to the fridge. I memorized the way his mouth curved when he smiled, how his eyebrows sat slightly lopsided. My friends thought I was spiraling. They weren't wrong. Then I did something reckless. I wrote him a letter. Not an email, not a message. A real paper letter. I didn't tell him I might be his daughter. I simply said my mother, Lily, had known him once and I had questions about that summer. I asked if he'd be willing to talk. I gave him a burner email. I mailed it with a trembling hand and a half-beating heart. 3 days later, I got a reply. Just 4 words, "Can we talk soon?" I stared at Daniel's message for nearly an hour before replying. "Can we talk soon?" It was polite. Cautious. The kind of thing you say when you don't know if the next conversation will heal someone or ruin them. I wrote back. "Yes. I'd really appreciate that. I'm free most evenings. Whatever's easiest for you." He answered in minutes. "I'm around Thursday night. Would you prefer a call or video chat?" I chose video. I needed to see his face. I needed to look for clues, mannerisms, micro-expressions, anything to confirm what biology already hinted at. I told myself I was doing this for closure, but I knew I wouldn't be able to sleep until I heard his voice. When Thursday came, I showered, changed 3 times, and positioned my laptop at the exact right angle. My hands were sweating. My stomach was a battlefield. At 8 p.m. sharp, the call lit up. I clicked accept before I could change my mind. And there he was. Daniel Cross. A little older than the photo on the website, grayer around the temples, crow's feet deeper, but unmistakably him. And God help me, I looked like him. Our faces aligned in ways that felt almost aggressive. I suddenly felt transparent, as if all my mother's secrets were written on my skin in invisible ink and he was the only one who could read them. He smiled first. Tentative. Gentle. Hi, he said. His voice was warm. Soft. The kind of voice you imagine reading bedtime stories or humming along to old records. Hi, I replied, suddenly aware of how high-pitched my own voice sounded. Thank you for agreeing to talk. Of course. You said your mother was Lily. I nodded. Yes. Lily Jensen. His eyes widened a little. Wow. I haven't heard that name in God, over 30 years. She passed away recently. He shifted, the smile fading. I'm sorry. She was a bright flame. That's how I remember her. I let that hang in the air for a moment. Then I leaned in. I need to ask you something. And it's going to sound strange. Okay. In the summer of 1988, did you have a brief relationship with her? He blinked. Yes. We met at a music festival in Vermont. She said she was going through a separation. We only saw each other for a few weeks. Why? I could feel the ground sliding out from under me, even though I was sitting still. Because she got pregnant. That fall. She and her husband reconciled and he raised me as his own. But she never told anyone, not even you. I only found out after her death. She left me a letter. The silence stretched for a full 10 seconds. His face drained of color. Wait, he said. Are you saying you think I'm your father? I didn't answer right away. I just let the weight of the possibility settle between us like dust. Yes, I said finally. That's exactly what I'm saying. He leaned back in his chair, hands over his mouth. He was quiet for a while, I searching mine like he was trying to remember everything about that summer and fast forward 35 years to this moment. Wow, he whispered. Wow. I'm not looking for anything, I added quickly. Not money, not obligation. I just needed to know who I came from. He nodded slowly. That's fair. God, this is surreal. Yeah. Welcome to my month. He gave a short laugh, then looked at me more carefully. You do look like me. That eye color. Hazel with gold? That's rare. My mom had it. I have it. You definitely have it. My throat tightened. For so long I'd hated that fleck of gold. Now it felt like a compass needle. I'd like to do a DNA test, I said. Just to be sure. Absolutely, he replied without hesitation. Let's do that. And if it turns out I'm your father, I'd like to be a part of your life. If that's okay. I didn't expect that. Not so soon. Not so simply. Okay, I whispered. Yeah, that would be okay. We ended the call after an hour, both a little shell-shocked. I ordered a DNA kit the next day. So did he. A week later, we both spit into our respective tubes and mailed them off like people sending their fates away for scientific confirmation. Waiting for those results was worse than any breakup I'd ever endured. Every day felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, wondering whether the ground beneath me would turn out to be solid or smoke. 3 weeks later, I got the email. Daniel Cross, 99.98% parent match. I stared at it for 5 straight minutes. Then I called him. He answered on the first ring. Well, he asked. You're my father, I said. And then for the first time since this entire storm began, I cried. Not out of sadness. Not even relief. Just a release of everything I'd been holding in since the moment I opened that damn letter in the attic. He didn't say anything for a while. I think he was crying too. I miss 33 years, he said softly. But if you'll let me, I'd like to be around for the rest. I didn't call him Dad. Not when we spoke on the phone. Not in the email after the DNA results. Not even when he drove 6 hours to meet me for the first time in person. He introduced himself as Daniel. And I let him. We met at a quiet cafe halfway between our cities, a neutral zone, like we were world leaders trying to sign a ceasefire treaty. I got there early and stared into my coffee until it went cold. I thought about walking out more than once. But then he walked in. Same warm smile from the video call. Same hesitant eyes. He spotted me instantly. You look just like her, he said as he sat down. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to say, so do you. I wanted to say, I've been looking for you in my face since I was 12 and didn't know why. But I just nodded. He handed me a photo album. Worn leather, the kind that smelled like old paper and missed opportunities. I brought some pictures, he said. In case you wanted to see where you come from. The first photo was of him in the 80s, long hair and a guitar, standing in front of a grimy bar stage. That's me the summer I met your mom. I stared at it. He looked barely older than I was now. Smiling. Free. She didn't tell me she was married, he added quickly. Not until the last week. I probably wouldn't have, well. Doesn't matter now. I flipped the pages slowly. Concert flyers. Him holding a baby that wasn't me. Then that's my mom, I said, pointing. There she was. Lily. Young, laughing, wrapped in Daniel's arms. I'd never seen her look that alive. It hurt more than I expected. She called me her miracle, I said. In the letter. But she also said you were a mistake. He winced. Yeah. I guess I was. We sat in silence for a while. I don't know how to do this, I admitted. I don't even know what this is. I don't either, he said. But I'd like to try. If you let me. I wanted to say yes. But there was someone else I hadn't told yet. Someone whose name was on my birth certificate. Someone who had packed my school lunches, taught me how to drive, cried when I left for college. My father. Not Daniel. The man who raised me. So I told him. I haven't told my dad yet, I said. Daniel's expression shifted. Ah. Right. Yeah. I need to. He deserves to hear it from me. He nodded slowly. I agree. But that's going to be hard. You have no idea. Because my dad, my real dad, emotionally speaking, wasn't the kind of man who handled surprises well. He was all routines and radio news and black coffee at 6 a.m. sharp. He loved with quiet acts of service and could go weeks without saying the words, I love you, even if he meant them every day. And now I had to sit him down and tell him I wasn't his. I called him the next day and asked if I could come over. I told him it was about Mom. When I arrived, he was already at the table, 2 mugs of coffee in front of him like he'd sensed this was serious. I sat down. My hands were shaking. I found a letter, I said. In Mom's things. In the attic. He didn't move. It was addressed to me. She wrote it before she died. I think she meant to tell me, but couldn't. I took a deep breath. She said, you're not my biological father. He blinked. Once. Twice. Then he looked down as if he'd known this moment was always coming. I know, he said quietly. I froze. What? I knew, he repeated. Not the whole story. But I knew I wasn't biologically yours. I stared at him like he'd slapped me. Then why didn't you ever say anything? Because it didn't matter, he said, finally looking at me. You were mine. From the moment she told me she was pregnant and I decided I wanted our family back, you were mine. Tears welled up before I could stop them. Why didn't she tell me? She was afraid. That you'd see her differently. That you'd see me differently. I wiped my face. I don't. I mean, I do, but not in the way she thought. He reached across the table and took my hand. It was the first time he'd done that in years. Who is he? He asked. His name is Daniel. I've met him. He seems kind. He wants to get to know me. My father nodded slowly. Then let him. I won't stand in your way. Just promise me one thing. Anything. Don't ever think I stopped being your father. Not for 1 second. I squeezed his hand. I don't. And I meant it. I thought finding Daniel would be the hardest part. I thought telling my father, the man who raised me, would be the final emotional mountain. But it turns out the aftermath is its own kind of hell. Because once the truth is out, it doesn't just exist, it grows teeth. It started with my aunt. She called me 2 weeks after my conversation with Dad. My mother's younger sister. The one who always brought wine to holidays and whispered gossip into mashed potatoes. So she said, her voice coated in that honeyed suspicion. I hear you've been playing detective. I froze. What do you mean? Oh, come on, she snapped. Daniel Cross? Really? You think nobody would find out you've been emailing your mother's old fling? My mouth went dry. How do you know about that? I was there in '88, she said flatly. I knew something happened. Your mother came back from Vermont glowing like she'd fallen off a soap opera. And then, like magic, she and your father got back together. It never added up. I didn't say anything. She didn't stop talking. She begged me to keep my mouth shut. Said it was just a blip, that she'd made a mistake, that it would ruin everything. And you know what? Maybe it would've. But now I guess the truth gets its moment. I'm not trying to ruin anything, I said quietly. I just wanted to know who I am. She sighed. You deserve that. You do. But be careful, sweetheart. Your mom spent a lifetime building a version of the truth she could live with. If you keep tugging, the whole thing might unravel. Too late. The unraveling had already begun. Daniel and I started talking more. Weekly video calls turned into texts every few days. He sent me pictures of old gigs, childhood photos of his late mother, even recordings of him playing guitar in his studio. He wasn't pushy. He didn't try to force a connection. But it was there, subtle, quiet, undeniable. And then one day he asked me something that knocked the air out of my lungs. Would you want to meet my family? I stared at the message for a full 5 minutes. His family? I hadn't asked. I hadn't wanted to know. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I'd assumed he was alone. Divorced? Maybe a lonely bachelor teaching guitar to bored kids in the suburbs. But of course he had a life. Of course he had more. I typed slowly. Do they know about me? His reply came fast. Not yet. but I want to tell them. I think they deserve to know. I didn't answer right away. I walked around my apartment, my heart doing that awful flutter crash thing it does when it's trying to outrun consequences. I thought about his kids, my half-siblings, maybe. His wife, if he had one. What would they think? Would they hate him? Would they hate me? I called him that night. Are you sure? I asked. I'm sure, he said. I kept it from them because I wasn't ready. But I am now. And I don't want to build anything with you on more silence. The next week, he told them. And all hell broke loose. His oldest daughter emailed me. Her name was Kate. 30, married, lived in Colorado. She wasn't kind. I don't know what you want from my father, but he's not yours. He raised us. He's been our dad. Whatever your mother did back then, that's not our problem. Leave us alone. I sat at my desk for hours after reading it, the message burned into my eyes. I didn't respond. I couldn't. There was nothing I could say that wouldn't sound like an invasion. Daniel called me the next day. He sounded exhausted. She's angry, he said. She thinks I betrayed them. I didn't mean to hurt anyone, I whispered. I know, he said. But this is the part no one talks about. The damage that truth does, even when it's right. His wife, he told me, had taken it better than expected. Not thrilled. Not heartbroken. Just tired. She told him to deal with his past before it eats the present. I respected her instantly. Meanwhile, my own father, the one who changed my diapers and taught me to fish, was becoming more distant. Not angry. Just different. He stopped texting me good morning. He didn't pick up when I called on Sundays. When I visited, he seemed unsure whether to hug me or shake my hand. I knew that look. That quiet panic of a man who fears he's losing something he can't name. I'd seen it in his eyes once before when my mom first got sick. One night, I stopped by unannounced. He was watching TV, dinner half-eaten on the tray beside him. Hey, I said, taking the spot next to him. He glanced at me, then back at the screen. Hey, I miss you, I said. He didn't look at me. You've been busy. Not too busy for you. A pause. Then he muted the TV. I don't know where I fit anymore, he admitted. I know I'm still your dad. But some days it feels like you're floating away. I'm not, I said, grabbing his hand. I know who raised me. I know who loved me every day of my life. That hasn't changed. It never will. He finally looked at me. His eyes were glassy. Just don't forget, he whispered. Don't let this rewrite everything. I won't, I promised. You're not part of the past. You're home. My mother is still dead. That's the part no one likes to talk about once the dust settles. Once the shock fades and the emails stop coming and the family drama finds its new rhythm. She's still gone. She left behind a letter and a fracture. But also somehow a beginning. It's been 6 months since Daniel Cross found out he had a daughter. Since I found out the man I loved and resented and called Dad wasn't my biological anything, and yet more of a father than biology could explain. We exist now in a strange, emotional architecture. A house with too many doors, some of them closed, others left open just a crack. Daniel and I talk regularly. Not daily. Not obsessively. But steadily. We're figuring it out, like two people who walked into a movie halfway through and are trying to guess the plot from context. We met for lunch a few times. He showed me where he grew up. I met his brother, my uncle, technically, who hugged me and whispered, "Took you long enough," as if the universe had always known about me and was just waiting for the paperwork to catch up. His daughter Kate hasn't spoken to me since her email. I don't blame her. She was living in a reality where her father was hers, whole and untouched by another life. Then I arrived, not just a secret but a scar. I didn't want to hurt her. I still don't. But I also don't exist to make her comfortable. And then there's my dad. The man who raised me. We're better now, but not quite the same. He forgave me for looking. For needing to know. But I think he's still afraid he'll lose his place in my story, like he's been replaced by someone with a better claim. He hasn't. The truth is, I love them both differently. Daniel is this curiosity wrapped in kindness, a man I'm just getting to know, who sends me bad jokes and guitar chords and occasional letters in the mail. Handwritten. Like the one that started all of this. He's warm. Careful. Maybe a little guilty. But he's trying. My dad, he's the baseline hum in my life. The quiet steadiness I took for granted until it was shaken. I don't need to discover him. I just need to remember he's always been there. The last time we had dinner, he brought out an old shoebox. I've been meaning to give you this, he said, sliding it across the table. Inside were photos. Dozens of them. Me age 5 in a dinosaur costume. Age 10 asleep on his chest. Prom photos. College move-in day. Notes I wrote him as a kid. A crayon drawing labeled me and Daddy. I kept everything, he said. Even when I was mad. Even when I didn't understand why you needed to find someone else. Tears blurred my vision. You'll always be my dad. He nodded. I know. I just wanted you to have proof. It wasn't about genetics. It never really was. It was about the people who show up, even when they're hurting. The ones who stay. The ones who build love out of moments instead of blood. I still visit my mom's grave. Sometimes I bring flowers. Sometimes I bring anger. You lied to everyone, I told her once, standing in the cold with my hands stuffed in my pockets. But you also tried to protect us. And maybe that's what being a mother is sometimes. Making the lie just big enough to keep your world from falling apart. She'll never answer me. But I like to think she'd smile at that. There are days I feel heavy with everything I know now. Secrets carry weight, even when they're shared. But knowledge also clears the fog. I know where I come from. I know who chose to love me, even when they didn't have to. I know what I lost and what I found. The last time Daniel visited, he brought his guitar. He sat on my balcony, playing old tunes from his bar band days. I made coffee, even though it was too late for it, and we watched the sky go dark over the city. At one point, he stopped strumming and looked at me. I think about her a lot now, he said. About Lily. I don't know what she wanted in the end. But I'm glad she left you that letter. I nodded. Me too. Do you think she'd be mad we found each other? I considered that. No. I think she'd be terrified. But also relieved. We sat in silence for a long time. Just two people reshaping their lives around a truth that took 3 decades to surface. I'm not trying to replace anyone, he said finally. You're not, I said. You're just arriving late to something that's already in motion. He smiled. Better late than never? Exactly. The next morning he left before sunrise. I stood at the door as he walked to his car, guitar case slung over his shoulder. Just before he got in, he turned. Take care of yourself, kid. I smiled. You too. Dad. I didn't mean to say it. But I did. And it felt right.